This is how you know a team is recruiting and developing better than everybody else. Georgia is going to have the best tight end room in college football again in 2024, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion on 3PFF. Everybody that's making a list so far seems to agree that the Dogs will boast the best tight end group in the country. Again, part of why they've had that the last 3 seasons is because they've had Brock Bowers, one of the best college football tight ends of all time, if not the best, right? He's up there. 2 Mackey Awards. No one's done it, and the award's not that old, but you get my point. Contributes to 2 national championships. Absolute freak. Top 15 pick in this year's NFL draft. If he wasn't injured, I believe he would have flown up and been at the top of the Georgia record books in terms of receiving production. But that didn't happen. And now he's gone. Along with some other NFL tight ends for Georgia over the last couple of years. Yet I still think Georgia's room at that spot is better than anybody else's, right? You get a Michigan who's got a really good tight end in Colston Loveland. You've got Brian Nesbitt at North Carolina. You've got Gadsden at Syracuse. I can't pronounce the guy at Utah's name. There are some other really good tight ends in college football. Not only has Georgia recruited that position, they're recruiting it better than anybody else. Todd Hartley, Kirby Smart, Mike Bo, everybody that's contributing to getting that position in Athens. My goodness, they are recruiting way better than the other schools at this spot. When you just look over the last few years, they went out Darnell Washington, Eric Gilbert, Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, Pierce Sperlin. Right, they're getting all of these high-end recruits, and on top of the room that they have left over from last year, right, they go after an established tight end in college football in Benjamin Urasek. Right, I didn't realize until tonight that I was pronouncing his name wrong. I was saying Urasek, I think it's Urasek. Right, coming from Stanford, has played a few years over there. He's going to be in a much better situation at Georgia if he is healthy. I expect him to have a good year for the Dogs because I expect him to be on the field. He's an established guy in college football. He was one of the best tight ends in the sport a couple of seasons ago in 2021. Has dealt with injuries the last couple of seasons. Didn't play a ton of games last year due to a shoulder injury. I just watched a lot of film on him, so I have new opinions on the guy. I've got my opinions on Oscar Delp. I've got my opinions on Lawson Lucky and what has happened with Pierce Sperlin and this Jaden Riddell kid that's now coming in for Georgia as a true freshman. Best room in college football. Let's dig into it. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about the Georgia tight end room and why they're still number one even with the departure of a legendary tight end in Brock Bowers. And they're just going to keep it rolling, right? They're proving on the recruiting trail we're going to keep adding guys that we think are super, super talented at this position. They're in the mix for another 5-star tight end that's from Camden County, Ellis Williams. I went and watched him personally. They just keep this thing rolling, right? Does Ellis Williams end up coming to Georgia? That's not set in stone, but they are high on his list. And this year, in 24, Oscar Delp's going to be out there a ton, right? A guy that will now be in year 3 in the program, was always on the field last year. Him and Brock as the 2 starting tight ends. I think they like to start 2 tight ends. 2 tight ends are on the field a lot for Georgia, and that's part of why this position is so valuable for them. Power running, having versatility at that position matters because not only can you get guys a block, but can they be elite pass catchers downfield? They've had that, right? They didn't use Darnell Washington in that situation a lot, but I think that he could have way better numbers if Georgia gave him the opportunity to have those numbers. Obviously, Bowers with some sick ones in his own right. John Fitzpatrick had key moments. You're going to see Lawson Lucky get in there and make a couple plays over the course of the year. I believe he'll be kind of your tight end 3. But thinking that even Lawson Lucky is not going to get on the field, he's going to get on the field. They're going to rotate him in. Even Oscar Delp found his way on the field as a true freshman and the tight end 3. Behind Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers. He got out there and still made some plays over the course of the season. And then, when his number was called, when Darnell Washington was struggling with injuries in the postseason, guess what? Oscar Delp went in there, did his job, blocked, caught balls when he needed to, and contributed to a national championship as an important player for the Georgia Bulldogs. Adding Urasek is what put them over the top. Maybe you could argue that they weren't number one. Maybe is Colston Loveland, the tight end for Michigan. Everyone kind of seems to think that he is the best in the sport at the moment, at college football, not just football, but at college football. People are leaning towards him being the best tight end this season. I think if Urasek is healthy, he's gonna be a pass catcher for Georgia, right? Not a guy that blocks as well as even maybe Oscar Delp. I think Oscar Delp has put on some weight and improved in that. It's obvious how much weight that in muscle that and maybe a little bit of beef that Oscar has put on while he's at Georgia, and that is to help contribute in the run game and blocking, being a physical receiver down the middle of the field. That is something that Benjamin Urich can be. Urasek, I said Benjamin Urich. Urasek can be that. Just watch the tape. Not a great blocker. Not even as good as Bowers. And Bowers wasn't elite. It was something that he was solid at. It was something that he wasn't. They weren't afraid to use him as a blocker. Urasek is a dynamic pass catcher. What do I mean by that? He can catch balls in the middle of the field. He can create separation in the middle of the field. He can adjust to balls that are not accurate. And that happened a lot for him at Stanford between Tanner McKee and the other quarterbacks they've had over the last few years. In the tape that I just watched, there were a lot of incomplete passes to him because they just weren't even close, but he had separation. He could have made big-time plays. These were potential first downs, potential explosive plays that they were missing out on with him. Carson Beck's not perfect, right? Carson Beck is supposed to be the best quarterback in college football this year. At least that's what he's projected to be. Georgia's got a much better offensive line. Georgia's going to have better weapons around Urasek, so it's not like, hey, we have to hone in on this guy because we can ignore Dominic Lovett. We can ignore Dylan Bell. No, you can't ignore those guys. They're some of the better players in college football, and so is Urasek, and he's going to be out there alongside them with a quarterback that's going to deliver cleaner passes, and we saw Carson be able to do that with Brock Bowers over the middle of the field a lot last year. Delp is a good middle of the field guy. And now they have another one in Urasek, a little bit different, a guy that I think maybe stretches the field a little bit more. Now, Delp likes to hurdle. Delp can lower the shoulder. He's a guy who's going to put up better numbers than he ever has in his career, most likely just because I think, unless Urasek gets here this summer, and I say here, I'm in Athens, gets here and just blows them away and is much better, which is possible. I do think that Oscar Delp will be a key contributor to this offense. Now, I think that he can be that too. Behind them, Lawson Lucky. He's a guy that's going to get out there. I expect him to get out there. He is smaller for a tight end in a way, so was Brock, right? Is Bowers, I'd argue he's not a true 6'4", my opinion. Just being around him a lot over the last few years. I don't know if he was quite 6'4", but he was close. And Lawson Lucky's a little bit on the slimmer side as well, not just, a big beefy tight end. He is a pass catcher. He is fast. He can make plays. He's, out of everybody in that tight end room, I think he has a lot of explosion. Maybe he's the quickest. In a straight line, I think he would most likely beat the rest of them in a race if it was Lawson Lucky. So a guy that can stretch the field from the inside and the outside. That's the other thing about it, is these guys can go to the outside too. That's something I saw a lot in Benjamin Urasek's tape, was they like that tight end wheel. Bringing them in line and then stretching them out as guys go inside and letting him run down the sideline. They delivered some footballs to him in that sense too, and you can get touchdowns with him that way. Saw them do that with Brock Bowers over the last couple of years, so maybe Georgia will implement him into that part of the offense as well. And then behind Lucky, you've got Jaden Riddell. Right, it's 5-star in this current class, so he is a true freshman. I thought in the moments that I saw him in practice, a lot of explosion. He was hurt a little bit this spring, so maybe he didn't get to bloom as much as he would have. But fast, strong, good hands, and flashed at G-Day. Let me get his numbers back up for G-Day. He ended up with 5 catches for 23 yards with 11 as long. So not crazy. It was, hey, check down. We need 5-6 yards here. Boom. We trust to get the ball out quickly to you. And that was with Gunnar Stockton mostly. They will develop him over time. He will eventually become a contributor on the field. Georgia's killing it at the tight end position. I named, other rooms that have some good guys, but collectively in this group, there's just, because of how well they've recruited it and how much of an emphasis there's been on that, there just aren't other rooms that are as stacked, right? When Lawson Lucky's your tight end 3, Lawson Lucky could go over and start and be an 800-yard receiver, I think, for some schools. Like, I think that there's talent there in their depth. And they're going to keep adding to it as long as Todd Hartley and Kirby Smart want to grind it out. Thanks for watching.